Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I really appreciate it. Uh, you have worked in IP in the UK for several years. How is the current COVID-19 situation affecting the legal sector in general, and which are the major changes you've seen in the last few months?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one for the IP sector, and in fact for many of us who come from an office environment, is this move to working remotely entirely. I mean, I think we can all say we're quite fortunate that we can do our jobs effectively from home, or at least remotely. But I think what's been quite good is this almost very rapid adoption of certain technologies which help to allow this remote working. I think, as a firm, Pinsent Masons has always moved towards being quite agile and encourages remote working and flexibility. So I think it was a relatively smooth transition for us compared to perhaps some other firms, because we already had a lot of sort of systems in place to be able to have video calls and meetings and discussions on chat function. I mean, I think there was a particular uptake in email traffic, certainly the first week when we all move remotely, and I think we've all sort of adapted a bit more. We're all reaching out, and I certainly sometimes make an excuse to have a video call or a call with someone, because it's nice to reach out and have that conversation, have a virtual coffee. I know my team has virtual lunch once a week, and we have a pub quiz on Thursday evenings now as well, which I came second in last week, which is nice. But yeah, so there's a sort of adapting to the new normal is what everybody talks about. And I think one of the things that we as a firm are looking at is that we're not looking to the long term at the moment, because you can't really predict what the long term looks like. So I think there's a big focus on short term objectives, what's going to happen right now, how can we best support our clients in the short term. I mean, I've got, as a litigator, I've got several live disputes at the moment, so how can we help our clients through those, and then what will the next few months look like, I think would be my takeaway from where we are now.
You had mentioned that you're a litigator and there are some cases going on. How is the current situation affecting those cases in particular?
Well, it's quite interesting, actually. I mean, my cases are at different stages. Some of them are, at the discovery, what we call disclosure stage. So, very much like we're based in the office, we have those discussions around those sorts of issues with e-providers from home. What's been quite interesting is what's happening with our short-term hearings and our trials here in the UK. So the default here at the moment is that hearings, and here an interim or interlocutory hearing might take anything from an hour to like a court day, and those are being addressed remotely. And the courts have issued guidance about use of telephone and video conferencing, and there's a lot of flexibility around it. So the courts encourage the parties to try to work out what's best, and there's a level of formality. I mean, in the UK, we don't tend to have jury trials, and certainly not in the IP space, which I think makes things a bit easier for us. But we generally have a judge, and then our barrister advocates. So in terms of a video call, you would have the judge who would be wearing his robe at home. His clerk would be facilitating the IT, and then the advocates would appear dressed in their suits as they would be in a court hearing, and everybody else obviously is very, very, very much muted, but very much involved in the background. I've got one trial which is going to be heard in June, and we're currently discussing with the other side what that would logistically look like, what technology we would use.
You're an IP lawyer at Pinsent Masons. I'm sure you and many of your colleagues are involved in international cases in other European countries as well as elsewhere in the world. How does the COVID-19 situation affect specifically the international collaboration?
Well, I think it's interesting because were this a and a UK centric problem, or a US centric problem, perhaps there would be my answer will be different. But because we're all in this together and we're all having a very similar experience, I think the our ability to sort of communicate and interact with each other has sort of been strengthened because we're all in the same boat. So, I mean, I think IP is a very international area, and I've always said that I speak to colleagues in Germany or France who are IP lawyers more frequently than I would perhaps some of my corporate or employment colleagues who operate in the same office, just because the nature of the work we do. Um, so I think that sort of collaboration by email, by platforms like Teams or Jabber as we use, has always been a part of our work. It's just come to the fore, and very much like how we conduct all our business. But and certainly, I've had conversations with colleagues in Germany and France just yesterday, and I'm in regular contact with them by email all the time because that's just the nature of what we do. And I think patents is a particularly interesting one because although obviously we're dealing with UK rights in the UK courts, many of our clients are international. So we have, as standard, a lot of experience of working with clients by phone and email to understand particularly complex things. And so I think it's a slightly more sort of involved way of working, but one that I think we're familiar with.
Do you see any IP stakeholders having
Mhm.
any financial impact due to the current situation? Would you say the impact is more noticeable in some jurisdictions?
I mean, I wonder whether it's more sector. I think it'd be difficult to say a particular jurisdiction is more impacted than others. I mean, because obviously, in the Far East, they had their restrictions and lockdowns and manufacturing disruption much earlier in the year, and now there's been a level of easing there. Whilst here in the West, it sort of happened later. And obviously, so it's hard just to say from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but I suspect some sectors will be more impacted than others just because of the nature of their business and not being able to provide their service digitally. Manufacturing being an obvious example. But I mean, I think it's interesting how if you look at comparisons like the crisis in 2008, for example, you saw a lot of companies looking to focus on their core business, or perhaps some companies just not being able to survive in that particular environment. And that meant that there was obviously offloading or sale of IP rights that were being acquired by other companies. So you saw large telcos, for example, divesting parts of their patent portfolios and those being acquired by non-practicing entities who then deployed those in patent litigation. And so you could imagine a similar situation here where certain businesses looking to streamline, identifying things like patent renewal fees as a cost that they'd rather not have to bear at the moment, might sell off some of their rights, which are then acquired by other people. And and the other side of the coin is that there may be older technologies which could be repurposed in a more focused way and add value. So someone selling off a particular portfolio of IP rights might be snapped up at somebody else who has the capital behind them to be able to then develop that technology in a new way. So I think that there will be a lot of I think the market for IP will become quite dynamic over the next 12 months, I expect.
It seems like the companies and your clients are going to be more focused and like really pivot at this time during the crisis and like really look at their business in a different light.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of thinking about obviously being prudent and the importance of cash, but I think there is certainly a big thought around collaboration and innovation. I mean, obviously we see a lot of very positive stories about companies repurposing their manufacturing to support the efforts in their in healthcare. You see a lot of companies coming together and sharing ideas for a common purpose. I hope that those sorts of things, like continue. once we come out of the other side of this. And I think that there'll be a real emphasis around innovation. I think you see, like, a lot of data-driven businesses have becoming more and more relevant, and certainly I think that trend towards the importance of data will no doubt continue. We also, I think, will see people looking to, I don't know, streamline manufacturing or supply, and obviously there will be technology that will need to be brought in to play there, and obviously there will be associated IP rights. So yeah, I think collaboration and innovation, I think, are two things that we will be seeing more of as well.
Anything else you would like to add that reflects how the legal sector has been impacted by the global reality that we are currently living in?
I think one thing I was thinking about that I quite like is that there's an increased thoughtfulness to the way that we interact with each other. I think there is. I reach out to sort of junior lawyers in my team on a regular basis to make sure that they're all fine, working well. And just generally, it's nice to sort of reach out to them, have a conversation like we would over a coffee at work. But I think combined with that, this thoughtfulness that we have for each other as we work in this remote way is quite good. And I think it's interesting how we're sort of learning to pause, think, listen, give each other time to speak,